Okay, here we are now.
All right.
It's
I think we
already
are.
10 and yes. All right, everyone. Happy Sunday. I know folks in India is after evening time there, and here in US it's morning. I welcome everyone to today's podcast. We have a very pressing topic and very interesting topic to discuss. I'll let Shantanu take it from here, and then I can jump in.
Yeah, no, thank you, Aniket. And again, good to be back here with all of you. Welcome to this episode of our marquee podcast series where strategy meets execution. So, Aniket, I think what we are going to talk about today is something uh, that most Indian small, medium business owners who are importing goods
Correct.
either don't know about or they know about it, but they are probably not paying enough attention to it, thinking that it's too technical, too complex to navigate, so on and so forth. We are going to talk about rules of origin compliance, right? The country of origin and rules of origin compliances, and specifically the regulation called CAROTAR 2020. I think that came in and became a reality last year, very quietly in a way, but it is going to fundamentally change how an importer is exposed to various legal frameworks. Right? So it's going to be
100%.
an interesting topic today. Okay. We
So
can start off with our introductions, very quick ones. I think by now you all must have known us quite well, but still, for people joining in new, I am Shantanu Kirkar, founder at 1.618 Business Consulting, founder and principal consultant. I have about 22 years plus of experience working with automation MNCs, and I have spent time uh, developing businesses, especially software related businesses. I've spent time in corporate strategy roles, and I also spent time in driving digital transformation projects with these MNCs. With 1.618, I am specifically focused on helping small and medium businesses, MSMEs in India particularly, uh, bridge that growth gap. So help them take that next leap in their growth trajectory, help them develop and deploy strategies, marketing plans, and so on that really helps them shape up to grow into a 2x or 3x their current business sizes. So that's about me. Aniket, maybe you can also quickly introduce yourselves
sure,
and then we jump on to the topic.
absolutely. Welcome everyone. For new folks out here, just my introduction. I have 15, almost 16 years now. I came here, United States, 2008, pursuing my masters, but 2010 till 2026, 16 years in US, working in different industries, starting from automotive industry, where I worked in majority of my time, Cummins. Then actually led a lot of roles, supply chain operations. Started my career as an engineering, and then went into Amazon. Led some automation project there, warehouse automation, for 2.5 years, and now I'm working in a pharmaceutical manufacturing company, helping them to automate their manufacturing line. So I have 2 years in India also. So total 18 years experience, 16 in US, 2 years in India, worked in Kirloskar. But yeah, I bring out um, expertise in supply chain operations plus project management. I do have a PMP certification. So I love solving problems for the small, medium businesses uh, from an execution standpoint, bringing out efficiencies and saving them costs. So, with that being said, let's dive into today's topic. It is very, very, as Shantanu said, very interesting one, and I believe this will like it will overlap with a lot of your pain points, and we are happy to provide you a very good solution framework to go, pursue it. So with that being said, let's get it started, Shantanu.
Yes, let's get it started. So, what you see here on the screen, we usually start with what's the most important message that we want to drive. We put that up front. So, that's the bottom line for you here. Four important things that we are going to delve on today. And every listener here, every business who is importing under any FTA, be it between India and ASEAN, or between India and South Korea, or India, Japan, you name it, anyone who is importing under those free trade agreements, they need to listen to this very carefully. Number one, the proof of origin shift. As I mentioned earlier, in March last year, the CBIC amended the CAROTAR 2020 regulation through the customs notification, and they replaced the term. The important part lies in the that changed in there was that they replaced the term certificate of origin with proof of origin. And this isn't just semantics, it's not a minor change in just one word. uh, what it means is previously, when you presented a certificate of origin from a foreign authority, it was treated as sufficient evidence of proof that the imported product originated in the country or the region where the certificate mentioned it. But now customs are going to demand a full evidence package. What it means is it would include, or it should include, commercial invoices from all your suppliers, detailed cost sheets. It should include manufacturers, declarations, and production logs, and the list goes on, which will obviously come to it in much more detail in some time. But
Hmm.
that has what has changed fundamentally, and the certificate alone is no longer acceptable. It doesn't protect you
Correct,
moving forward. So that's what we'll look at.
correct, correct. And Shantanu, I think let me add some context on why this happened, right? So this amendment, what you were mentioning, was specifically triggered by the problem of third country routing, right? The goods
Right.
originating from China, they were being shipped to Asian countries, Sri Lanka or UAE, and then repackaged with a certificate of origin from the intermediary country, and then imported into India at preferential duty rates. So now they realized this route, and then the Indian government was losing significant customs revenue. So what they did was the business standard reported that this move gives custom authorities a greater flexibility to demand evidence beyond just a
Hmm.
certificate, right?
Correct. Correct. Right. So that's important. The first change is the change in that definition itself. The second point here we want to highlight is the 5 year sort of what we are calling the sword of Damocles that's hanging over the SMB's heads. Uh, there is one particular rule in CAROTAR 2020 that mandates that you must retain all supporting documents related to your earlier declarations for a minimum of 5 years from the date of bill of entry when it was filed. So from the date of the bill of entry when you imported this product, 5 years hence, for that duration you should maintain all documentation related to that. So it also means that customs can reopen and audit any shipment you cleared today, 3 years from now or 4 years from now, and demand your full documentation package. It doesn't mean that once you have cleared the shipment, it's done and dusted for you. It could be
Correct,
reopened 3 4 years down the line, and if you can't produce a related documentation, then the preferential tariffs that you would have enjoyed under the FTA, they get revoked and retroactive. So that's another important change that has happened. So I think there's also an additional interest on top of that, depending on how late uh, or after how many years the case gets reopened. The interest could be in the 15 to 18% compounded range. So
That's
with
huge.
penalties, I think that adds up to a huge number for
Absolutely,
companies.
absolutely. And let me like emphasize this more. I mean, for SMBs out there, if you imagine like your shipment of electronic components, say suppose from Thailand, and under this Asian India FTA, which was released in April 2025, you are saving around 8% duty, say 12 lakhs on a big order. But then your CHA filed this paperwork, and you got a clearance. Oh, the goods are in your factory. Then you just do not worry about it, and life moves on. However, the fast forward to 2028, the customs flags your shipment through their risk algorithm. They're sending you a notice demanding cost sheets, vendor declaration, production logs, and also the full traceability of your supply chain. So they do not have them. So your old procurement manager, right, who handled the supplier, then suppose he has left the company 2 years ago, and your vendor is in Thailand, change ownership, you cannot produce this document. And what will be the result of this? 12 lakhs of duty saving is clawed back with 3 years of compounding interest plus a penalty on top of that. So you are looking at around 25 to 30 lakh for a single shipment. Just let that sink in. There is one more nugget I want to add. An SMB clears a shipment today, but falls an origin audit 3 years later. If they fail that audit, discarded cost sheets, lost vendor declarations, and employee turnover with no handover. That financial impact, is calculated from the original imported date plus compounding interest and plus penalties. It's a
Yeah,
huge impact.
it is indeed a big impact, and I think that's what also becomes clear in the third point here,
Mm.
the warning signal. So again, this is a case that should raise red flags for everyone. It happened with Reliance Industries, right? One
Hmm.
of India's largest conglomerates, with
Yes,
vast legal departments and the legal muscle to fight all such cases, uh, unlimited resources available at their disposal. They were hit with a almost a 2 crore penalty
wow.
by Chennai Customs a couple of years back for allegedly incorrect terms of origin, or CO incorrect origin claims. So if a company with that kind of market presence, with that kind of money muscle available with them, faces this level of scrutiny, uh, a normal MSME or an SMB company can just imagine what would befall them if they get caught up in these non-compliance issues.
Correct.
So it's a serious thing, or it's a thing that SMBs need to seriously start looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, the number four, right? That is the one that most SMBs get very dangerously wrong. It's the
Mm.
Custom Act 1962 and uh, CAROTAR 2020. That is the legal onus of exercising what does this regional care means, and address with the business owner. So if not with your custom house agent, but it's not with, and even not with your clearing agent, and not with
Mm.
your broker, it's you, the importer, uh, that carries all the burden, and your CHA will not save you. So
Yeah,
just keep that in
absolutely.
mind.
Yeah, and this is commonly heard from many companies that you know similar to what they do about their finances. I'll let my CA handle it, or with their legal issues, I'll let my advocate on record handle it. Um, Even with this, they will say that I'll let the custom handling agent handle it, but that's not what happens. They are not going to. They are only going to handle the filing for that. If something goes wrong or if something is non-compliant, they are not going to carry the legal liability in your place. Right? You
Correct.
are the ones who are going to having to face it. So it comes to your company is exposed to that. Your eventually your reputation is online. Right? So that's what you need to look out for. And there are number of active free trade agreements currently, so it's not just about one or two things. In fact, there are 13 active free trade agreements. We have that uh, FTA network context here. There are 13 FTAs and 6 preferential trade agreements. Right? I mentioned some of them earlier: ASEAN India, ASEAN South Korea, India Japan. India ASEAN, India South Korea, and India Japan. And the latest ones, the India UAE SEPA that happened in 22, India Australia. So every importer who is claiming preferential duty under any of these FTAs, they are subjected to this CAROTAR 2020 compliance, and the magnitude is big. You know, it's trade worth 200 billion, import trade worth 200 billion annually. So in terms of dollars, so you can just imagine the magnitude of it. And if there are non-compliance issues related to this, they would also run into millions of dollars at least, if not
Absolutely.
billions.
And this
So
FTA,
yes, we have this shield framework that we have come up with. It's your sort of 5 point compliance defense system, compliance defense shield.
yeah,
I like the way it is getting acronym. So sorry, it's the 6 pillars rather, which will surround and protect your business core. And you can think of it as a compliance system or a compliance defense system, a system which helps you erect defenses in terms of compliances and navigate all these imports under these FTAs. Right? So let's look at them one by one. The first one, S, that stands for supply chain transparency. Again, you need complete visibility from your tier one supplier all the way back to the raw material source. So and it has to be documented. It can't be just verbal communication saying that I usually source it from such and such place. You need proper documentation for that. It must be a legally binding declaration from your supplier with indemnification clauses. So if your supplier tells you, let's say he or she is from Thailand, uh, they are telling you that the components are made in Thailand, that statement needs to be on paper. It has to be signed and it has to be contractually backed, saying that the supplies are indeed coming from Thailand. So
yes,
that's what first one says.
correct. And one practical example from my experience when I was working in Cummins, I work with this Pune-based automotive component manufacturer. They were importing a steel alloy. I think it was from South Korea, and under the India-Korea SEPA, the steel was supposed to qualify as a Korean origin. But when we trace back that supply chain all the way back to where it was originated, and found out that this raw material was sourced from China, so
Hmm.
processed in third country and then finished in Korea. So the question becomes: does this processing in Korea constitute substantial transformation? So without traceability to the raw material, you cannot answer that question. It's just simple as that. And if you can't answer that, you can't defend your preferential duty claim.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, so that's about supply chain transparency. The second one is historical documentation. It's again, as we mentioned earlier, a 5 year archive of all origin related documents that you need to maintain. It has to be indexed by financial year, bill of entry, shipping bill. Again, the key thing here is if it is not indexed, it doesn't exist.
Yes,
So you could, with the tools available today, you could actually easily digitize them. You can just use a cloud-based repository like Google Drive or Dropbox, where every document is linked, and you can link those commercial invoices to proof of origin, to production logs, to payment proof. So all those documents can show the full workflow, and can have good traceability and historical indexation to that. So that's, it's what we are calling the golden thread. You're actually linking all those documents into one workflow, which gives you quick compliance visibility.
Correct. And critically, then you need a retrieval SLA.
Yeah. Correct.
Basically, you gotta design your system so that you can retrieve any 5-year-old document, say within 4 hours, right?
Mm.
Because when a post clearance audit notice arrives, your custom officer doesn't give you 2 weeks to rummage through old files. They give you a very tight timeline, and then you gotta, like, scrambling signals to them that something is wrong if you take more time. Uh,
Right.
just one more insight I want to add, like, you can actually create a cloud folder structure, say suppose 2024 25 bill of entry number, and then have a SKU name, and then
Mm.
inside each document, inside each folder, maintain proof of origin, CO or self declaration form, uh, then your commercial invoices, cost sheets of that manufacturer, then their declaration, production log, payment proof, bill of material, etc. And have one person assigned. It could be your procurement manager or your whoever is logistic handling the logistic parts of it. Like, keep them as an compliance champion to maintain this, because whenever these audit triggers, these quarterly audit folder are your savior, and also they, like, it's a complete document that you can use it during audit. You don't have to scramble and look for different documents or different folders.
Mm.
uh,
No,
and
and I think that's what we are sort of espousing in the next one, the internal controls, right?
correct.
So the it means that your procurement SOPs that require a rule of origin verification before they are switching their suppliers. So that's a necessary step. If you're switching suppliers, are you is the procurement team checking whether the new source affects your origin calculations or not? If they are not doing that, then you are introducing a compliance gap. Eventually, uh, the customs or the audits might pick up on these things, that you did not do a verification of what was the origin, and did they follow the rules of origin specifications or not. So, you know in this case, training is essential. Cross functional compliance training is essential. Your compliance champion cannot be sitting in isolation in silos and working by himself or herself. Their work has to percolate through, especially the procurement department, especially the sourcing department, and they should know what the compliance champion really is trying to say, and has to be implemented in your procurement processes as well. So it has to be all encompassing. All functions need to come together: sales, procurement, logistics. Everyone who touches the process, import process, needs to understand the basics of this regulation.
Correct. And I'll tell you a scenario I've seen in MSME, in Gujarat was importing plastic granules from Malaysia, and it was under Asian India FTA. I think that procurement guy found a cheaper supply in Vietnam, who claimed the same Asian origin, and then he switched without informing the compliance team. What happened?
Mm.
That Vietnamese supplier was actually repackaging Chinese material. Uh, so it was
Oh.
originated in China, and then he was just doing a repackaging. But one audit later, the company faced a demand notice for differential
Mm.
duty on 2 years of shipments. So basically, your procurement management cost saving end up costing the company 15 times more in penalty. So that
Mm.
is why you need a ROO gate, um, a mandatory compliance check before switching to any supplier.
Correct. Yeah, rules of origin gate. That is important, and as it is important internally, it's also important externally. So the next
Correct.
point in the Shield framework is our external validation. Now, you should not wait for customs to audit you. What you can do
Correct.
is you can pre-build what we are calling a defense file for each product line. So this is sort of a pre-packaged dossier that contains a one-page criteria, let's say, that explains how exactly your product meets the rules of origin. Okay,
Yes.
you can have a process flow chart showing what manufacturing steps were followed, um, where did transformation happen, where did value add happen, and you can have a traceability map that links all these input materials to the origin proofs, right? All the components to the origin proofs, all the raw materials to proofs of origin. So you can also, in fact, conduct mock audits. You can conduct simulations, and you can run a drill where someone plays a customs officer actually and demands your documents within 10 days. So you can see how fast are you able to retrieve those from your systems. Just keep testing yourselves, because then you don't want to get caught off guard when the actual audit happens.
Correct. What does the
So
L
that is
stand
the
for?
right. So L here stands for legal safeguards. As you see here, again, your supplier contracts must include origin warranties and penalty clauses. So if your Thai supplier, going back to the previous example, um, says that the goods are of Thai origin, and later during audits, if customs is able to prove it otherwise, then your contract should allow you to recover the duties and penalties from that supplier. Okay, so sort of think a couple of steps ahead and include these sort of indemnifications in your, or safeguards as it says here, in your
Yes.
contract itself. Right? And the audit rights, the contractual right to inspect your suppliers, if a customs raises a query, that should be included in the contracts too. So
Correct.
if you don't have these couple of important clauses in the contracts, then you are actually flying blind and right into the compliance nightmare.
Correct. Correct. And that is something most Indian MSMEs never do. They operate on trust. Oh, Mr. Wong has been our supplier for 10 years. He won't cheat us. Maybe true, but customs don't care about your relationship with your Mr. Wong, or how long it has been. They care about just the documentary evidence, just
Hmm,
strictly going by the paper. So if they can't produce it, you're not the one paying the penalty.
absolutely. Right. And the final one here is dynamic monitoring. The D stands for dynamic monitoring in Shield. So your regional value content calculation, which is what is called the RVC, it is
RVC.
not a static number, right? The RVC is not a static number.
Correct.
It changes with exchange rates, commodity prices, and supplier costs, etc. So let's say if the Indian rupee depreciates significantly, as it is doing right now, against the same, in that same example, against the Thai baht, your RVC percentage is going to shift, right? If your commodity prices spike, your bill of materials value changes. You need quarterly RVC recalculations in that case to update your cost. So anytime you substitute a vendor or a component, that triggers an immediate rule of origin recalculation. You should
Correct.
continuously look for these changes and recalculate those ROO or RVC, regional value calculation numbers. Now,
Correct.
again, a quick nugget here. To calculate RVC, there are a couple of methods that exist. Mm, RVC, one is called the build-up method, build-up RVC. So what it does is value of originating materials divided by the freight on board value into 100. So that's the build up method. Build down method is FOB price minus value of non-origin materials divided by FOB price. So depending on as a percentage of what value you're taking, there are various ways to calculate RVC, and it differs primarily for different FTAs. So uh, one FTA, let's say India ASEAN FTA, might have a certain RVC value and a certain way of calculating that RVC value. So depending on what FTA you are importing the goods under, you should calculate using either both methods and on a regular basis. And wherever it gives you a higher margin of safety, you should do that. So currency fluctuations, for example, can push you below the threshold without any change in actual
100%.
sourcing. So you need to, keep recalculating to see if you are staying in that band.
Yeah. So let's look into the slide number 6 now. I think we covered most of the points on this shield framework. So um, let's,
Right.
I think here, walk us through this old system versus the new system. What has
Yeah.
changed?
So this is what we mentioned. It doesn't. It's not merely a change in word. It carries a lot of implications with it.
Applications.
So
Yeah.
under the old certificate-based system, the importer presented
Mm,
a certificate of origin issued by a foreign authority, let's say. Now that COO was treated as the most conclusive evidence of origin. So
correct.
you, in that case, you would not be asked to provide any other certification but that certificate. Customs earlier used to have limited power to demand anything beyond it because it was not mandated by law. And the importer's role was essentially just passive. You delegated your custom clearing agents. You asked them to handle all these documentations. They got the CU certificate, and you know uh, things progressed with that. What that resulted in was a rampant trade deflection, fake
Mm,
certificates of origin. Since it was just one document that the company had to produce, it could be easily forged or faked, or you could use one for the other. There were massive revenue leakages in that for the Indian government. So, what that drove the government to do was to introduce a new system in which it's a proof based system. Right? It's not just one certificate anymore. In fact, that certificate is now part of the larger evidence package. So, beyond that certificate or along with that certificate, you now need to have supporting documentation, which
using
includes commercial invoices from your suppliers, detailed cost sheets. You would have declarations from manufacturers about the certificate of origins of their material that they are supplying to you, or that you are using as material to do your own value add. Um, you know Production logs documenting the manufacturing process, so on and so forth. So customs is now empowered to scrutinize, verify, and demand all these other documentations as well, which constitutes more evidence of country of origin compliance. So in that case, the importer's duty also becomes very critical. It's They can no longer just be passive in about this. They are supposed to be actively helping in verification process, and they should actually possess the data, the RO data with them, so that even that is considered as one compliance action. Even having that data is one compliance requirement. So the SMBs or the companies have to always be on a lookout for these things going forward.
very good point. So let's, and I think one important point we have to also cover that there is a structural change that our listener need to know about. Right, all verification is now centralized under the Directorate of International Customs (DIC). Correct, and then the specifically FTSL in New Delhi. They previously have to have individual port customs officer handling verification inconsistently. Now it is very standardized process and it's very data driven. Scrutiny applied uniformly across all the ports. So if one port risk algorithm flag a pattern in say palm oil imports from Malaysia, The same scrutiny can cascade to every port handling similar imports. So keep that in
Mm.
mind. All right, let's move to the seventh slide. I think I covered this. Okay. So this is retrospective verification, 5 year SWOT. What?
Right. So yeah, this is again we touched upon this, but we'll give some more details here.
Mhm.
Now, this is about the retrospective risk that one would carry on, especially on the documentation part. So the audit mechanism, when you're audited for the rules of origin, it happens in 4 steps, right? So one is an audit trigger. The customs they detect that there is a supposed risk or an alleged risk. They have their own algorithms and sampling methods to identify such risks. And if there is a red flag against your name, or any of the historical shipments, then the customs are now under the authority to go back and reopen that case, right? So
Correct.
once they flag that shipment, they would demand additional documentation from you. You could They could request for the form 1 supporting documents, and again the duration is from any year in the last 5 years. The shipment can be any shipment in the last 5 years. So that's the second step. Then third step, you need to do formal verification. They initiate a verification process with the exporting country's authority, and then in the last one, if they find that it was non-compliant trade, then they can do a retroactive enforcement. If you are not able to prove the rules of origin or as per the rules of origin, then the preferential tariff that you enjoyed at during that particular shipment or during that trade, that gets revoked from the original import date. So
Correct.
from there, it is calculated with interest, with penalties, and you owe all of that back to the government, back to customs.
Correct. And
That's
then that's
yeah.
where I think I mentioned this earlier, but uh, again, double down on this risk algorithm piece. It is not a random uh, thing. Okay, so custom uses that data analytics to identify patterns. So if the import of a particular HS code from an Asian country spikes suddenly, say right after tariffs on Chinese good increase, that pattern gets flagged. And they look at which importers are claiming the largest duty benefits. And then they compare with their intelligence from the DRI, Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. And it's very sophisticated system. So don't assume your shipment will fly under the radar. Keep that in
Mm.
mind when you're, and we'll put some more information in our show notes. Uh,
Right.
for more details, how to go, like, get that information and all that. All right.
Absolutely. We can. You want to move to the next one then?
Yes,
Right.
yes. I think that's what I was thinking. Let's move on to the slide 8, which is for tactical. This is actually a diagnosis to prescription. And Shantanu, I think 4 tactical tools that any SMBs can deploy immediately.
Okay.
Let's go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, this makes it very practical and very relevant for our listeners. So we have 4 tools here. Now let's say the first tool is what we call it as supplier declarations and indemnification.
Hmm.
Right, now this is mandatory and this is immediate. So your whatever you have as an understanding with your suppliers, you should transform that into legally binding contracts. No more verbal contracts or my word, because eventually it becomes my word versus their word, and there's you can't lay accountability on either end in that case. So it has to be a legally binding contract. It has to have 3 parts. You can take 3 actions in that. The first one is per invoice certification. So that requires your vendors to certify origin status on every commercial invoice, not
Correct.
just the ones that when you onboard them, or not just the first one. So every single invoice needs to have that certification. The second is the indemnification clause. Again, all your service level agreements or master service agreements, um, you should make the suppliers financially liable for paying duties and penalties if their claims about their components or their products country of origin or rules of origin that fails an audit. So the financial burden lies on the liability lies on your suppliers in that case. And the third one is audit rights. Now, you should have the contractual right to inspect tier one supplier records if customs raise a query, right? So that is your sort of safeguarding yourselves on the upstream side with it.
Absolutely. And let me tell our listeners something very practical. I think this sound may sound a little bit aggressive, but especially for SMEs who are negotiating with a larger foreign suppliers, here is a framing. You are not being difficult. You are protecting both parties,
Mm.
right? A reputable supplier who genuinely has that original compliance will have no problem sharing that and signing those clauses. But if a supplier pushes back on those and refuses, I think that's a first sign of red flag. I think that tells you their origin claims may not withstand the scrutiny. So just be aware of that.
Right, right. All right. The second tool here is dynamic bill of materials scrubbing. Now we mentioned the RVC, the regional value content, and we also looked at how it's a moving target, sort of shifting goalposts because
Yeah,
of different factors in it, right? So it's not a static number. um, Again, there you need to do some sensitivity analysis, test your RVC percentage against foreign exchange swings, especially rupee depreciation or spikes in commodity prices, etc. um, Even a 10% depreciation in rupee can push your RVC below the FTA threshold overnight. And you are recently seeing how volatile the rupee has been
rupee has
against
been.
some of the principal currencies. So that is surely going to impact your RVC, and if it goes beyond the FTA band, then you are in for some trouble. The second one is sourcing change trigger. Again, any new vendor or new component that you are substituting for an old one, you should immediately do the RO recalculation. Um, the method optimization is the third one, in which you switch the build up build down formula that we spoke about when you're calculating those RVCs. You should use those build up or build down methods, and you should optimize the method for your particular trade or your particular shipment in a way that it yields a higher margin of safety for that quarter. So you specify the measurement and you specify the outcome, and uh, make sure that it's clearly documented. So that's what we are calling as the second tool, which is dynamic bill of materials scrubbing. And the
Correct.
third one here is digital record keeping. Again, we spoke about that earlier, the retrospective risk that these carry. Uh, we mentioned that you could use Google Drive, you could use cloud based or cloud residing documentation, which is indexed by financial year, bill of entry year, even can go down to the smallest SKU level identification, right? So you need to have what we are calling the golden thread that links every commercial invoice to its proof of origin, and production log, payment proof, everything in between. You should then also have the retrieval SLA here, a standard way of retrieving any document in the least possible amount of time. And if it is not indexed, then it's not going to happen. So uh, for retrieval, you need good indexation as well. If it is not getting properly indexed, then it doesn't really exist, because not we are not going to be able to retrieve it later. So that's the third important tool that you should use for being compliant to ROO requirements.
Yeah, and then that I want you bring out a good point that like the natural question the SME will ask is, oh, do I need an expensive software to track this? I would
Mm.
say start with a Google Drive or some software, well organized software like Tally, Vault. I think the key over here is the structure and discipline, not the tool. So having a dedicated champion that we mentioned earlier, and monitoring this KPIs and as well as monitoring their workflow will
Mm.
be beneficial on a weekly or periodic basis, whatever daily or weekly, whatever you set up. So create a folder template, train one person to maintain it, and then audit it quarterly basis. Even I think the small investment of 2-3 hours per week will go a long way, and it will avoid you any hefty penalties later on.
Correct. Yeah, and that should give rise to what we are citing here as the fourth tool, the pre-packaged defense file. Now, again, this is high priority. This is culmination of all the effort that you are taking,
Correct.
being compliant. Um, let's say you do receive a notice for auditing your shipments, report shipments. You don't need to scramble. You just have the dossier ready.
That's it.
For each product line, just pre-write a criteria, sort of a one-page summary explaining how exactly that product meets the rules of origin framework or the compliances. Then you can actually build a good process flow chart, a visual diagram to show how is the manufacturing process happening, on at what points is value getting added, in what region, what are the RVC calculations, so on and so forth, right? So that whole traceability appendix, if you are maintaining that, then it will sort of act as a very good pre-packaged defense file that you can pull out as soon as you get any notice or as soon as there is any upcoming audit. Yeah,
Very, very well said.
yeah,
Think of it as like an income tax file, right? You don't wait until the audit is triggered on you. Just have all these records handy and have this SOP ready so that anyone, right, can pull it out. When custom knocks on your door, you have it, hand it over to them confidently. All right. Moving on to the second last slide. I'm just watching my time here, and then okay. So this one.
and
Let's move on to discuss this 30, 60, 90-day plan.
yeah, go ahead. So this is what we eventually end with, right? This is, I think, for listeners, this would be the most practical part.
Correct.
What do I do going
Correct.
forward with
So,
this?
so for first 30 days, right, assessment and discovery, I think the motto here is know your exposure. I think you need to track three key activities. First is the footprint, FTA footprint audit. So map every active preferential trade lane that you use currently, and then calculate the total duty sinks you are claiming. I think that is your exposure number. If you are saving 40 lakhs a year in a preferential duties, that's your potential liability. If compliance fails, uh, then you move on to the second one, which is top three SQ BOM review. I think pick your three highest value import SQs and manually calculate their RVC, regional value content, using both build up and build down method. We explained that in earlier slide. To see where your margins are, and then third, go into vendor origin mapping. For each tier one supplier, identify their blind spots. What are they sourcing their inputs? Where are they sourcing their inputs? What are their documentation? And then deliver by day 30. It's the risk exposure report.
Yeah, and I think Aniket, you mentioned. I think the most critical part in this is having that dedicated compliance champion.
Correct.
So that has to be done in the first phase itself. In fact, in the first week itself,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you should hire or you should have a compliance champion. It need not be a new hire. It could be someone senior from your finance team or from the accounts team, but someone who is a single point of contact, a single owner who is owning this whole rules of origin roadmap. Right? Without having that person or without having a single point of contact here, it becomes everyone's responsibility and therefore nobody's responsibility, as the saying goes.
Absolutely.
So that's important.
Moving on to the phase two, which is 31 to 60 days, I think we characterize this as a systemization. Basically, the goal here is to build a defense mode. So there are
Mm.
three activities. First is the supplier agreement, right? Insert indemnification clauses and mandatory per invoice origin declaration into your all supplier contracts. Work with your purchasing manager and have those included in your supplier contract. And it's kind of in conversation. It's not in confrontation. Keep that in mind. And frame it as an Indian custom now require us to maintain this. So plain request, and I don't think they will deny that. And if they do, there's a red flag for you.
Mm.
Second one is the procurement SOPs. Implement it as an ROO get, and then mandatory compliance check, kind of, before you switch the vendors or changing your sourcing origin. And the last one is the third one, digital archive launch. Basically, what you are doing is you're building your cloud folder structure, indexing by your financial year and bill of entry, and then start loading those current and historical documents, and then complete that folder. And the last day, deliver by 60, is the shield framework is live,
Mm.
right? All right.
Absolutely. All right. Phase three is the audit readiness. Again, we mentioned that you should do your own simulations and do a stress test on your own processes. You can first do those mock audits. In a way, you can simulate a 10-day deadline for document retrieval. See if you are able to do that within that time frame. You can have someone actually play a customs officer, and typically the kind of questions and the audit frameworks that they will use, you should use those and see if your system can produce a complete defense file for your top SKUs. Um, the second thing that you can do is you could do cross-functional training. Again, you would have a single point of contact, but then every function needs to be involved in this. Be it sales, finance, logistics. They should know what these rules of origin are. What are the CAROTAR 2020 basic regulations? What are the penalties of non-compliance? So they know the opportunity cost associated with that too, and what is their role in this whole compliance process. So they should
Correct.
be very clear about that. And lastly, is you should have a regular quarterly review. um, you should do continuous monitoring, institutionalize that. Every quarter you can recalculate your RVC and audit the document archive and review any supplier changes. Just make a habit of doing that every quarter. So by the end of the 90-day period, you are a certified and audit ready company. So
Correct.
moving from vulnerable on day one to an audit ready company at day 90. That's the
Yeah.
journey.
The base important thing over here is the your investment. If you think about investment in this, is the time and discipline. That's it, right?
Mm.
So have a structured approach. I mean, it's counter. We are giving you all this framework and all these nuggets free of cost, but think about as a like investment into your compliances, which will avoid a big hefty ticket or
Mm.
penalty ticket, which you don't want to see. All right, the last one. Um, let's go into the ROI equation. I think most of the SMBs might be interested in this.
Yeah, and I think we have we are able to put this in a very intuitive manner. On the left, what you see here is the cost of non-compliance.
Hmm.
So a single failed high value shipment, for example, if it fails that audit, the duties, the penalties, the legal fees that are going you are going to incur on that, the whole amount often exceeds the cost of an entire year's worth of compliance infrastructure. That's
True.
what you would otherwise spend in developing that compliance infrastructure. One bad shipment can cost you much more than that. So that is what we are calling the one shipment rule. uh,
One
you
bad
just
audit.
have to keep that this in mind, that
Correct.
even one shipment can ruin this whole thing for you. So the cost of non-compliance is high.
It's very high. Yeah. And if we want to break it down, right? Like let's look at cost of non-compliance, differential duty, uh, and that is also variable. So interest at around 15 to 18%, compounding, which you mentioned earlier, right? So penalties could range from 10 to 100% of duty amount. That's huge. And then demurrage and detention charges if goods are held, and if the truly incalculable cost or the lost contracts and the reputational damage associated with it, it's huge. So the large buyer who discovers you can't pass custom compliance audit, it drops you from their vendor list. You are already blacklisted. So those contacts never gonna come back. So
Yeah, right. So that's the cost of non-compliance, and then if you compare that with cost of our Shield framework implementation, then you can realize that legal setup is again a one-time cost. It's not a recurring cost. Digital archive system is minimal, as Aniket mentioned. You could use Google Drives or Tally Vault, some of the more affordable options out there, and even training your staff, having those quarterly reviews with them, that doesn't cost much in terms of money, nor in terms of time. Right? It's just a few years every 3 months, a few hours every 3 months. I'm sorry. So your periodic mock audits, they are mostly annual. You don't need to spend much time in that as well. um, Sourcing optimization is predictable. It should be already part of your systems on how you are changing vendors or supplying, substituting components, etc. So sourcing optimization is
it's
what you
built
know already, right?
100%.
And the typical ROI on compliance spend is roughly 3 to 10x of
Wow.
what you're investing in the
Yeah.
Shield plan. And by protecting 5 to 10% of tariff preference, that really gives you a margin that is going to fund your competitiveness eventually, or at
True.
least keeping you from those high non-compliance risks.
Correct.
So
So
yeah, I think, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, yeah, yeah. As you mentioned, right? It's not a cost center. I think I would say it's profit protection mechanism, right? So if we have to give an action summary, if you import anything under FTA into India, the top three things that you need this week is calculate your total annual duty savings from FTA preferences. That's your exposure number. Second one is ask your CHA to send you copies of all forms I like declarations filed in last 12 months. And then third is if you have supporting documents for each one, that's good. Third is the call your top three foreign suppliers. Ask them one question: can you provide a written manufacturer declaration certifying the origin of every components, the goods that you sell me? Simple. Their answer will tell you everything about your risk level. That's it.
Right. Yeah. And again, we need to look at this as honesty pays. If you are staying honest to this, then it's going to pay. Why, if you think about it, why the authorities, the government, the customs, why they have tightened screws on this is to stop trade fraud, which is there in place to safeguard your domestic manufacturers. Right? They
True.
shouldn't be impacted uh, by imports that are going to eventually decline their business. So, if you're a legitimate importer with a legitimate origins claim, then this framework, the Shield framework, that ensures that you can prove it and you can compliant, and that's what you need to do. Just starting today, start building your defense system file, and you should be in good stead. In 90 days, you'll be moving to an audit ready firm,
Yep.
not not afraid of anything.
Very well said. All right. So just trying to wrap this episode. If this episode has saved you a sleepless night, so our request from is share it with the SMB importer connect with Shantanu at 1.618 Business Consultancy. We'll put our show notes, contacts at last slide. I think the second and third slide I already mentioned our contacts page. Uh, and You can also reach out to me on my LinkedIn. Please do subscribe and leave a review. And most importantly, you know, build your shield network. So
Yeah. Eventually that's what matters most. But
100%.
I'm glad we covered this topic. I think very pertinent again, and I'm sure the listeners would go back with a dozen ideas to to start their journey towards being audit ready with that shield protecting them. So all the best, and I hope to see you all soon. Thank you for attending today's podcast or listening to this if you're doing it later. And let's keep interacting. We look forward to your comments, and we look forward to your suggestions as well on topics that are close to your heart, close to what an SMB is facing on a day-to-day basis. So keep interacting.
All right, everyone. See you next week. Thank you.
Good day. Bye.